ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. Conduit News Radio here this morning on this Johnny Cash Friday. The phone number 870-275-9799, and we have with us in studio, we have State Representative Dan Sullivan is here. Dan, welcome back to the program.
Good
sir.
morning, Paul. Glad to be back. I think this is the first time I've been back since I won my primary election.
Yeah, that's great. That's right. I mean, and I think that was a certainly positive thing. And I mean, what is your feeling on how that primary went that you were victorious in?
I think they made the right decision. And I really appreciate the support from your listeners, from people like the Patriots, from my motorcycle friends, and everybody that got to the polls and voted.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that, and look forward to serving another term.
Speaking of terms, let's talk about terms. Let's talk about, what do you think? What do you think about issue 3, which would cap term limits at 10 years?
Well, I'm still haven't made my mind up, because I do agree that there should be some sort of cap on the number of years that a representative or senator can run. I think that's a good idea. I think the concept is good. But right now, I'm against, and I think the 10-year cap in there is a bad idea. What that would do, if you have and there are many House members who serve in the House and then move to the Senate. And I think one of the best reasons to have those people doing that is institutional knowledge is critical. You wouldn't find a business that would promote somebody to leadership in 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 years. It takes that long to learn how things work. Nor would you kick your leadership out of business every 10 years and turn that over. So in principle, I know this is different because it's legislature and you do want protections there. So I think the caps are good. But again, the 10 years is too short. You take a House member that serves for 6 years, does a good job, the people like them. If they decide to run in the Senate, which many do, then they would be limited to just 1 term in the Senate. And if you ran in an election, that would be used against you. Why would you want to elect someone just for 1 4-year term? And that's a valid point. So I think, the old term limits, I think, was pretty good. 3 years in the House and 2 terms, or 3 terms in the House and 2 terms in the Senate, which went to 14 years.
So you're talking about pre-John Woods?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and I think that was a pretty good limit and addressed many of the points that are being made. But again, I think the 10 years is just a poor selection. You have to also consider that every 10 years we redraw our districts and set new boundaries out there.
The census, yeah.
We do the census, right?
Yeah.
And and in fact, what the Senate does, when you enter the Senate during that census year, you draw for a 2-year term or a 4-year term.
Yeah.
So you're going to get people who are in the House 6 years, they run and win in the Senate, and then they draw a 2-year term.
Wow, I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about it. So what State Representative Dan Sullivan just said here is in this scenario, you could have a state House member who serves 6 years in the House and would have 1 4-year term theoretically in the Senate if they ran and won. But on a census year, they might draw a 2-year term and be capped at 8 years instead of
Correct.
10. That is interesting.
And I want to be sure and verify that, but the people I've talked to, and when I look into it and the way I read it, that's the way I've read it. Now, if I'm wrong, I'll be willing to stand corrected on that.
Yeah, definitely want to. That's interesting.
I think that's a real detriment. And of course, you can have the broader conversation about people ought to be able to serve who they want to serve, and all of that conversation. But again, I think the 10-year cap is just ill-conceived. And if we wanted to go back to 6 years and 8 years, 3 terms and 2 terms, I would support that.
So do you think, let me ask you this, we're talking with State Representative Dan Sullivan. Let me summarize your position. You're for term limits. You're just not for 10-year term limits. You
Correct.
think maybe where it is now, 16 is a good thing.
Well, 16 or 14.
Okay, it was. Yeah, okay, yeah.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
There we go. Welcome on this Thursday. Thank you so much for being with us. The telephone number, 870-275-9799. Call or text. Sound off over at facebook.com/Conduit News if you would like to, if you feel so inclined. We have a great show for you today. Got a lot of guests to get to. We'll be talking in a makeup interview. Mr. Dan Bourne with the Patriots VAC 746. The reason I wanted to reschedule him is because we got a lot of stuff to talk about. This Salt Bowl situation and what happened with everybody scrambling for their lives. And let's be clear here. What happened with the Salt Bowl over the weekend, those of you that don't know, this high school football game, you need to silence that. This high school football game, there was a fight that broke out. A stun gun was pulled. There are people on social media that say they heard gunfire. The police department says there was no gunfire. But the bottom line is people thought their lives were in danger, and they ran out of there for their lives like cattle. I want to talk about the implications of that. And I want to talk about how the mainstream media is they're trying to solve a problem because it disturbs them too. Images and videos, it's very disturbing to them, but their solution is the wrong solution. And I'll talk about that with Dan Bourne coming up at 6:33. Then we'll be talking with Mr. Wade Bailey of Omega Guns at the top of the next hour. Then 7:33, we will be talking with Fort Smith attorney, transparency in government activist, I would call him, Joey McCutcheon. Can't wait to talk to him about issue 1, everything that's going on with that. Also, this first half hour, we will be getting to the Conduit for Action quiz that's up right now. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about what happened. Yesterday, I brought you the news. I mean, we covered it briefly, that Ron DeSantis had secured the Republican nomination for governor in the state of Florida. And so he was making the rounds on the shows, different shows. He went on Fox News, and he said this about his opponent, Mr. Gillum. Listen to this.
Well, look, I mean, Florida elections are always competitive, and this is a guy who, although he's much too liberal for Florida, I think he's got huge problems with how he's governed Tallahassee. He is an articulate spokesman for those far left views, and he's a charismatic candidate. And I watched those Democrat debates. None of that was my cup of tea, but I mean, he performed better than the other people there. So we've got to work hard to make sure that we continue Florida going in a good direction. Let's build off the success we've had on Governor Scott. The last thing we need to do is to monkey this up by trying to embrace a socialist agenda with huge tax increases and bankrupting the state. That is not going to work. That's not going to be good for Florida. So I'm going to fight for what I believe in, because I think I'm the guy who can really lead Florida in a good.
Okay, so he used a common phrase. Because his opponent, though, Mr. Gillum, is a black man, the left is claiming that DeSantis is a racist. That's right. You say the phrase, monkey this up, you could say that. Now, here's the thing. If, according to the left and their very, very strange double standard reality, if Gillum had been a white man, this would have been no problem, right? This would be fine. But because Gillum is a black man, the left says that Ron DeSantis is now Grand Red Dragon or whatever they call themselves of the Ku Klux Klan. I mean, that's what the left is saying now. And this guy, Gillum, goes on, then he makes the rounds yesterday because he definitely doesn't want to talk about his policies of higher taxes. Florida doesn't have a state income tax. Florida actually is a really great state in a lot of ways when it comes to policy, when it comes to government policy. And this guy essentially wants a 40% corporate income, 40% corporate tax. He probably wants to, he wants Medicare for all and all this other stuff. He don't want to talk about that. So instead, he makes the rounds and essentially says, yeah, you know what? This is just a play out of Donald Trump's playbook. He's a racist. Ron DeSantis is pretty much a racist, and he said monkey this up, and he did it because, that's a connotation against black people. I mean, it's shameless. Obviously, you hear the comments. Ron DeSantis is not a racist. Ron DeSantis was not attempting to call, to call his opponent anything close to a racial slur. People use the phrase all the time. I've heard the phrase, muck this up or monkey this up. The concept of throwing a monkey wrench into the situation and screw it up. He's clearly talking about the potential trajectory or where they're headed now versus where they will be headed if they elect a socialist. This he's a progressive. No, he's a socialist. They're the same thing, but the media says he's a progressive. The man's supported by Bernie Sanders, and the only thing the left has is the race card. Now, why am I bringing this to you? I'm sure you've heard about it. I'm sure you were listening or watching your favorite news program last night, and you've already heard about it, and this really is going to be, well, I don't know. The left probably will try to keep this around in the news cycle for a little while, but there was an article on Breitbart that I just had. It was so funny. See, the right could do exactly what the left is trying to do now if we wanted to, and that's the purpose of this headline. This headline over at Breitbart by Ian Hanchett is a tongue-in-cheek headline. See, Gillum, in the process of calling Ron DeSantis a racist yesterday, went out there and advocated for Medicare for all. He got a question about Medicare for all, and he says, you know what? Medicare for all will not work in Florida alone. We need a, quote, confederation of states. Now, this headline is clearly tongue-in-cheek. In the piece, it doesn't actually make the case that Gillum here, this socialist with terrible policies, is advocating for the Confederacy. But you know what? If we were the left, we would be out there now saying, this man is for secession and for the Confederacy. This man is backwards. No one's doing that. And it is the same. It would be the exact same as claiming that somebody is a racist just because they use a common phrase or word that would have been acceptable if somebody's skin would have been a different color. And in the context of what he said, it's clear the man was trying to say we don't need to monkey the situation up with socialism in the state of Florida. That's what he was saying. The left now wants you to think this guy is some sort of, closet racist with some and of course, that's what they think Donald Trump is. They think a New York billionaire is a racist, That's what they want you to think, that he's had these racial tendencies his entire life. He was able to get the respect of Hollywood and yet be a racist. He was able to get the respect of Democrats and the left, and yet Donald Trump was a closet racist. He was able to be on The Apprentice for years, but yet, you know what? He was really a racist the whole time. That's what they want you to think now. And they want to try to, bleed that over to anybody who has the endorsement of Trump and everything else. I mean, when Donald Trump says that the media are the enemy of the American people, or the fake news is the enemy of the American people, when he says that, he's talking about stuff like this. When the mainstream media is out to intentionally deceive you, they're not your friend. They don't have your best interest at heart. They are no longer arbiters of facts, and then you let you make up your mind, right? At least I tell you that I'm a limited government conservative. So anyway, it's an interesting headline, kind of tongue-in-cheek. So I thought we would, I thought we would start there this morning. What do you guys think? Tell me, 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be We'll be going over the brand new Conduit for Action quiz. It's up right now at conduitforaction.org. Who said what? It's a politician edition of Who Said What. Don't go anywhere. Back in a minute.
Yeah, because
before John Woods, and then that's the reason we're here, I guess. I mean, the reason why there's such a strict, why it's basically the pendulum has swung even further than it was with this proposal is because, and I've said this on the radio, you know, that the government kind of deceived the people, and so the people are now saying, you know, we're gonna attempt to put an even stricter check on you guys.
Well, and I would. Since you have the sign up right behind you that says "attack problems, not people," say that.
He's a convicted.
Well, I'm not going to attack you in your comment.
Oh, I see. No, I'll attack John Woods though because he's a convicted felon and he's the reason we're in this situation.
But I don't believe it was government that did that. You know, the people voted for that, and people, if they were fooled, they have to own that. You can't. I think it's not. As a legislator, I can't say, "Well, golly gee, I was fooled." You know, I have to own if I made a poor decision. And I voted for something, and I have, that I didn't know enough about, that I have to own that they didn't trick me. I was the one that made that error. I own that.
Who's next to Zipline?
Me, and I'm really excited about this.
Sir, I'm sorry. The Zipline has a 350-pound weight limit, and frankly, I do not think it would be safe for you.
Oh, that's okay. I self-identify as 180 pounds, so it's cool.
Sir, that doesn't make any sense to me, and I'm afraid we can't let you ride the zip line. You're too heavy. I'm sorry.
I can't believe this. I thought we had evolved as a society. I thought this was America, but I guess this is just my plight. First slavery, and now fat shaming.
Sir, again, I'm really sorry.
You listen to me. If you don't let me ride, not only will I sue this company for discrimination, I will sue you for damages because right now my feelings are so hurt. And I feel embarrassed because I'm holding up the line.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Watch it, mister.
Look, okay, I'm sorry. I just don't think it would be safe for you.
You don't understand. I self-identify as skinny. So you have to let me ride the zip line. The Constitution says so. I get to define my own reality.
Oh, you know what? Okay, fine. Whatever. Ride the zip line. Mike, let this man ride the zip line.
Thank you. Now watch as my self-identity trumps your bigotry. See you on the other side, racist. Here I go! Doctor, thank goodness. What's the prognosis?
Sir, we've done everything we can, and you only have seconds to live.
No, you cannot say that. I do not self-identify as a dead person.
PHP Parody. Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It is time for the weekly Conduit for Action quiz, where our producer, board operator, Joe, he's going to take the quiz this week like he always does. You know, politicians say crazy things, whether it's to get elected or mislead people. You have to always be skeptical of their words. Lately, some Arkansas politicians have made some outlandish claims, and we thought it was time to create a quiz highlighting some of the major statements of Arkansas politicians from the recent past. So today, test your knowledge in this Who Said It quiz, politician edition. Also sort of like, there's a few quotes for some bureaucrats as well. Here we go. Ready? All right, Joe, how are you, my friend?
I'm good.
Okay, good. I'm excited about this one because there really is some good quotes in here. A lot of people need to know who said what. Let's see here. We haven't been playing this one in a while, but this is the best one. When you get a correct answer at the end of this thing, well, it depends on how well you do, but this is the good sound. Okay, and then for the wrong answer, we just like to boo you because a lot of people need to. You can only boo at football games, according to the Democrat Gazette. You know that. You can only boo at football games.
I think the first question has something to do with that booing.
You never want to boo anybody if they're a politician. It doesn't matter what they say because you got to be civil because that's what Mama would want.
Well, because it hurts their feelings.
Yeah, the sound of silence. Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Hello,
honestly,
darkness, my old friend.
I don't want to get back into this, right? But I'm telling you right now, the fact that they titled it "The Sound of Silence" and they're encouraging Arkansans to sit on their hands in the face of corruption when a politician says something that's so outrageous, it's still really just it just gets me all worked up. Anyway, question number 1. Joe, after numerous statewide corruption scandals, including legislators and lobbyists going to prison for bribes, who said this about Arkansas legislators? Quote, no one down there right now is personally benefiting from being in Little Rock. These people are servants working hard for you. Was it Arkansas State Chamber of Commerce CEO Randy Zook? Well, that's an interesting option. Was it State Representative Bob Ballinger? Was it State Representative Greg Letting or State Senator Jeremy Hutchinson? Boy, it would be rich.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
All right, so which one? What do you think?
It's Bob.
All right, you're going with Bob Ballinger. I don't know. I mean, if you didn't know that one, that would have been a tough one. Back in 2015, while debating the Obamacare Medicaid expansion program, previously called the private option and now called Arkansas Works, who said this about a bill to keep Medicaid expansion? Quote, it ends Medicaid expansion, it ends it. Was that former State Representative John Burris? Was that State Senator Jim Hendren? Was that State Senator Jane English? Or was that State Representative John Walker?
Pretty sure it's old Jimmy boy.
All right, you're going with State Senator Jim Hendren. Question number 3. After Governor Asa Hutchinson vetoed a bill to fund a panic button for children's safety in schools, who said this in an interview? Quote, Representative Joe Jett told me that a governor's staff member told Jett that the panic button would never be funded unless I voted for SB 140, the internet sales tax. Who said that? Was that State Representative Scott Baltz in an interview? Was that State Senator John Cooper in an interview? State Senator Joyce Elliott in an interview? Or State Representative Les Eves in an interview?
Pretty sure it's Scott because I don't think we've had any of the other 3 people on in my time of being here, and I remember that being said. Pretty sure it's Scott.
You're going with State Representative Scott Baltz.
Yes.
All right. Question number 4. After claiming that the Medicaid expansion program, Arkansas Works, is not Obamacare, who then said this about the Affordable Care Act? Quote, the key parts are the individual mandate, employer mandate, and the exchange, and Medicaid expansion. Was that former Governor Mike Beebe, President Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, or Governor Asa Hutchinson? Boy, it's quite a list there.
Yeah, quite a list of people.
What do you think, Joe?
Are you sure? Is this an exact quote?
Yes, I believe it is. Yeah.
Okay.
I believe it is. I believe I have the audio somewhere, actually.
Okay, because I thought, and I'm probably wrong with this, but I'm pretty sure it's Governor Asa Hutchinson, first off. I thought he said use the word pillars. The key pillars.
You know what? He may have. I don't know.
I don't know. Either way, I'm pretty sure it's Asa boy himself.
Okay. All right. Governor Asa Hutchinson is your answer. Question number 5. While debating the merits of Common Core in education, who said this about children's homework? Quote, parents should not be helping their kids with their homework. That's the teacher's job. End quote. Was that State Representative Michelle Gray, State Senator Linda Chesterfield, Chamber of Commerce CEO Randy Zook, or nursing home owner Michael Morton?
One of my favorite quotes. Oh, Mr. Randy.
Going with Randy Zook. Question number 6. While announcing the granting of state tax breaks to a Chinese company, who told that Chinese company this? Quote, look around. These are your state legislators now. If you need something, They will help you, I guarantee it. Was this the Arkansas Economic Development Commission head Mike Preston? Was it State Senator Jane English, State Representative Reginald Murdoch, or State Representative Steve Hollowell?
I've had to type this name into our search bar on our computer more than once, and I don't like it. But yes, it's Mike Preston.
Okay, going with the AEDC head, Mike Preston. Question 7, while discussing the Arkansas state budget, who said this about Arkansas's financial situation? Quote, "We do not have a spending problem. We have a revenue problem." Was it Senate President Pro Temp Jonathan Dismang? Was it the House Speaker Jeremy Gillum? Was it Senator Bart Hester or State Representative Stephen Maggie? What do you think? Was it Dismang, Gillum, Hester, or Maggie? We have a spending problem. I'm sorry, we do not have a spending problem. We have a revenue problem. I believe this is when we had to cut projections during the end of the last fiscal year, or not the last one, the one before that. We had to cut projections and or cut spending, but it was a necessity or something, and then they said that or something. Anyway, I'd have to go back.
Trying to remember, because 3 of them are very plausible.
This is like this is the first one that you've really had to use. We're going to need an answer here just a little bit, so we got to move on here. We're going to be up. We also are going to be up against a hard break in about 4 minutes, so we got that going for us. Think it out now. Or are you getting stressed, Joe? Are you stressed? Maybe.
No, I'm not stressed.
This helps me to think a little bit more. It's a little bit more relaxing, you know? I mean, you just got to 70s game show.
At least you're not playing Jeopardy.
Right.
The Jeopardy music.
Yeah, I don't think we have the rights to that. Facebook
even if we did, it would stress me out more than anything.
Facebook would cancel the video. All right, so this, no, that's the wrong answer. So we're out of time. We need you to just pick an answer. And this sound means you're out of time. This is when Paul has control of the sound. This is the part of the show where I get to push the buttons. So
I still have a mouse to click.
What do you think?
I'm gonna go with Dismang.
Going with Dismang. All right. Question number 8. While debating the merits of an internet sales tax, who said this on the floor of the Arkansas House of Representatives? I bought that Lady Gaga song "Born This Way." You have to have respect for a woman who can wear a meat dress. Was it State Representative Kim Hendren, State Representative Aaron Pilkington, State Representative Dan Douglas, or State Representative George McGill?
I would actually legitimately love a recording of Aaron Pilkington saying this. I think that'd be hilarious, but it's Dan Douglas.
Okay, Dan Douglas. And then question 9, have you subscribed yet to CFA's email list? What town do you live? And Joe, whenever you are ready, what do you think, sir?
Like I missed one.
You think you missed one? Oh, no, that's
nope,
not
got
good.
100.
You got 100. Every one of those are right. You were right about that one. That was, in fact,
bringing it back with 100%.
Senator Jonathan Dismang, who said we have a revenue problem, not a spending problem. And so, Joe, you got 100, buddy. Thank you. We do appreciate that.
Are you not entertained?
Politicians say the craziest things, don't they? Go to Conduit for Action and check it out. Click on the Survey Monkey and have fun. Share it with your friends. Maybe a lot of people don't know this, right? Maybe a lot of people don't know that Medicaid expansion never ended, right? Unless somebody wants to call us and tell us that it did and I missed something. But it was certainly told that it was going away. Conservatives were told by the people who are in leadership now that it was going away, and it never went away. Anyway, we'll be right back with Dan Borum from the Patriots of Act 746. We're going to talk just a little bit about the Second Amendment. Just a little. It's like this much. And then, of course, we've got a small business spotlight with Mr. Wade Bailey from Omega Guns coming up at 7. And Joey McCutcheon, 7:33 on Issue 1, Fort Smith attorney Joey McCutcheon. Really excited to talk to him. We'll be back in just a moment.
apologize for that. So whether it was a senator that did that or others that did it, the people voted for it. I think it was an error to vote for this current system. And, you know, people are saying that under this current system, a senator or a House member could serve not 20 years, but 22 years based upon that same census rule.
Yeah, it can affect you in a positive light in terms of, or maybe a negative light.
And I think we've just overreacted. You know, it takes a long time for a House member or a senator to get to know the district and people outside the district. You know, it's taken me a few years to get to know people, all the people in the Patriot group.
Yeah.
You know, of other groups that are out there. It's taken me a while to get to know people who listen to Conduit all over the state. And it takes a while to get to know people who are in Republican committees, in Tea parties, to interact with those people. And I think it takes those people a long time to trust me. You know, they have to see my votes not just in one session, but in a couple of sessions. You know, I don't think I would have won my last election had the people not known me. Even the people that disagreed with me knew me. You know, I had a constituent in one of my communities that said, Dan, your voting record hurts me personally in my business, but you have stood strong for my community. And I'm probably going to end up voting for you because I know how much you care about the people that live in my community.
Wow.
You know, that it was really impactful to me. And it's true, I do really care about the people in my district and what happens to them, even if I disagree with them. But to build up that kind of trust takes time. And to limit that time to 8 years or limit that time, because essentially this bill is going to say you're not going to have many people that go from the House into the Senate. It just competitively, I did my 6 years and now I'm going to run for one House term and I've got to raise 100.
One Senate term.
One Senate term, I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you. I'm going to have to raise $150,000 and run for one term. If I'm donating to someone, why would I donate to someone who's limited to one term? Why wouldn't I find a candidate who I can keep in there for 2 terms, good or bad?
Yeah.
I think it's going to put a real burden on
finding people to make
interesting
arguments. Interesting arguments. We're talking with State Representative Dan Sullivan. Some of these arguments I haven't heard yet from the people who are not supportive of this issue 3, you know, to take the term limits from 16 down to 10 years. It certainly is very interesting. I will say this, though, okay, because I tend to support the 10-year, the term limit thing. A lot of the people...
The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the program. We've got Mr. Dan Borum with us. Dan's with the Patriots, VAC 746. You can search him on Facebook. They're on a mission to educate the people of Arkansas about your gun rights, your natural human rights of self-defense. Dan, welcome back, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Paul Harrell. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well, sir. I want to get your thoughts on a few things. Number one,
yes, sir.
I want to play, Joe, if you can pull up the Facebook page that I have here. This is a video that's circulating on Facebook. This is from the Salt Bowl, and I want to play this. I want people to hear it. I want people to see it who are watching at conduitnews.com or Facebook or YouTube. Just go ahead and listen to this, and then we'll get your thoughts. Okay, so Dan Borum, have you seen that video? What are your thoughts?
I have seen the video, Paul, and right off the bat, it just, to be honest, it creates anger with me. And that's because the government has created this pandemonium. And I say that because you see all across the nation, because of these random mass shootings, people are just, they see it on the mainstream news. They see it all across news on conservative and mainstream. And because of that, people are naturally just on the edge. And all it takes is just one little pop, and regardless of what it is, and people just go into panic mode. And there's no sense in this happening. This is exactly what a gun-free zone creates. It creates instant victims. And basically what it leaves most people is just running and hiding is their only choice. Basically, when you view that video, the Salt Bowl video, it looks like a bunch of nervous cattle on just fixed to stampede. And I just wonder how many people were hurt, not because of a gun being fired, or whether it was a stun gun or somebody hollered gun and caused pandemonium, but how many people were actually hurt during the people trying to reach escape routes and to get in a safe zone? That's what I'm wondering.
When I look at the video, we're playing it on loop here.
Yes, sir.
What I see is I see this is how the government officials in their ivory towers, this is how they see us.
Well, absolutely.
They are comfortable with this. I mean, these people are running for their lives. Now, we know that there wasn't a gun, or the police say there wasn't a gun. People thought they heard a gunshot. There's some,
right.
dispute over whether a taser sounds like a gun or whatever, or a stun gun. The bottom line is these people are sitting ducks, and if it's up to some of our leaders, they would have us this way. They would have us so dependent on government that all we can do is take our little girl and our little kids, take them by the hand, and try to get to safety instead of having the right to defend yourself.
That's absolutely correct, but let me ask this. How many of our government officials, let's just say our governor, would he ever be faced with this situation if he had been attending the Salt Bowl? Absolutely not. He would have had armed security around him. Why can't I be that armed security around my own family? Why can't I put them to lay them down between the bleachers and to try to get them in a safe place, and let me stand over them and guard them? And here's the deal. Eliminate the gun-free zones. It is so simple to me, Paul. Eliminate the gun-free zone. Citizens would then be liable for their own actions if they took irresponsible action, if they took action that preserved lives for others. They would be responsible for their own actions. And most people are not going to just pull their weapon out and just start randomly shooting in the air if something like this happened. They're going to be scanning with their eyes. They're going to be listening. They're going to be trying to see where the danger is coming from and then respond in a correct manner. Whereas our government officials want us to believe that people would just, without any training whatsoever, they would just start pulling their weapons out and just shooting in the midst of everyone and hurting more people. Nothing could be further from the truth. People who responsibly carry weapons to defend themselves and to protect their families are going to responsibly scan the area. They're going to be listening, using all of their natural, God-given instinct to see where the danger is coming from and then respond in a correct manner. Now, if we did not have gun-free zones, I guarantee you this stuff would not be happening. How many people, and I realize in the Salt Bowl there wasn't an actual shooter, but in the minds of the people, the fear was real. That's clearly demonstrated in the video that you just played.
Yeah.
But in the cases across the country where there actually was a shooter, whether it was in a school, whether it was in a place where they were playing video games and this man became angry and started shooting, I mean, these only happen in gun-free zones. It never happens in places where the citizenry is armed.
Yep.
Why can they not get that through their thick skulls? Paul?
I don't know. It really is in a lot of ways a disconnect from reality. Or people are paralyzed by the fear of something bad happening with a gun. But stuff bad is happening with guns all the time, and people are defenseless. And I just think, and I've thought before, and I think this is a good opportunity to rehash just briefly what happened in 2017 with the enhanced carry law. Say what you want about the NRA. I was very disappointed in the NRA and how they supported the enhanced carry law. But if you talk to them, or at least when I talk to them, the only reason they went along with the gutted Charlie Collins bill and the Bob Ballinger supported enhanced carry bill was because of the provision that was going to allow people to carry in places like football stadiums. To avoid this very thing. I think that's certainly a story. I mean, that is a story in the context of this happened in Arkansas, and this, and I know it was a high school game and everything else, but what were people saying? People said, well, the NCAA, the SEC, and so ASA, while taking the NRA credit, then immediately had Jonathan Dismang come up and said, I'm working on a bill to gut the very thing that got the NRA on board with the enhanced carry garbage in the first place. And
right.
What was it about? Well, we don't want people to be carrying a gun at a Razorback football game. That's a terrible idea. Or there could be drinking involved and people are drunk, and then they're going to have a gun. Emotional fans. Well, here's your other alternative. I've been to football games. I look around and I see. I thought many times I'm a sitting duck. I'm unarmed. Right. I'm a sitting duck. This would be like fish in a barrel.
Absolutely, and tell me, how would the CHCL or the enhanced really address this problem? It's not going to address the problem at all. It restricts. What it does is it restricts the citizenry. How many people? Let's just say there were 20,000. I don't know what the number was at the Salt Bowl. Let's just say there were 20,000 people there. How many out of the 20,000 would have been able to have went through the enhanced carry licensing training and been able to have passed the shooting requirements, the testing requirements, and then the money to first of all have the CHCL, and then to have the additional money to have the enhanced carry? It limits your citizenry, and it creates an elite class of citizens in the society in which we live, which is constitutionally wrong. I am sick and tired of our legislators legislating away our rights at our expense, at the expense of our families, and it's time for us to stand up and resist against this type of legislation, and there are ways to do that if people would just be willing to educate themselves in how.
How long before you're going to need an enhanced carry license to even own a gun?
I hate to even think of that, Paul, but, I wouldn't doubt if there is already those ideas and talk that's taking place in the Marble Palace.
Well, I mean, they're talking about red flag laws. I mean, that's just one. I mean, it's one step closer to something like that. I mean, you're gonna. What do you think about the governor being open to red flag laws?
I'm glad you brought that up because the patriots of Act 746, some of the admins I know that we are looking into other states that have dealt with red flag legislation, how that they have handled it, and also groups that are unwilling to compromise, gun groups that are unwilling to compromise of working with them. And I think there's going to be some interesting things coming up in the very near future from the patriots of Act 746, and I just invite everyone who may not be a member to join, and to join our page, to start educating themselves and researching the law for themselves, and see some great things that we have coming up in the very near future.
I think that's a good idea. I was talking to you, via text earlier in the week, and you were talking about how we've got to be able to resist,
Absolutely.
against the power-hungry, a righteous resistance. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, Paul, the thing is, we all know that power is intoxicating. I don't care who you are. When you have a taste of power, it is intoxicating. anyone can be drunken with it. And not only is it intoxicating, but it is toxic to the public. And when me being a preacher, and I like to refer back to the Bible, and I've done a lot of study concerning the Pharisees. Now, the Pharisees were a group of people. They were a group of Jews, Hebrew men, who refused to allow themselves to be Hellenized under the Grecian Empire that Alexander the Great created. And they became known as the separated ones. They clung to their Hebrew history. They would not allow the Greek idea to influence them, and they became known as Pharisees. Pharisees became very legalistic. Stephen, we know the man Stephen, he addressed them, and he gave them their history from the time of Abraham all the way up to the present time, just shortly after Christ was crucified and risen again and returned back to the Father. He gave them their history, and he told them in the very end of telling them their history, he said, "You are stiff-necked and uncircumcised in heart and ears." And what does that mean? He says you're stubborn, you refuse to listen, and you're hard-hearted. And I was thinking, man, that so describes so many of the ones who we have elected to represent us in this republic. They have become very stubborn, they have become very hard-hearted, and they have become hard of hearing. They refuse to listen to we the people, and they refuse to listen to the final arbiter in any situation, which is the Constitution. The Constitution, my friend, is the final arbiter. It is not the Supreme Court of the United States. It is the Constitution. And we the people have got to be like Stephen and be willing to stand up and speak the truth, regardless of what the outcome may be. We all know what Stephen's outcome was. He was stoned. They hated him because he told them the truth. They hated his guts. Not only that, these were supposed to be Hebrew of the Hebrews, Pharisees, and he was a Grecian Jew. He had a Greek name. Who was he to tell them? But anyway, we know that he was stoned, and while he was being stoned, he prayed for them, and he asked God not to lay this into their account. What a man. And at the same time, there was this man named Saul of Tarsus that was standing there holding the clothes of the ones that was stoning him, and it changed his life. And I want to tell you something. If we will start standing up and telling the truth and being vocal, get out of this apathetic mindset, we can start changing the lives of other people. We may not change the lives of the masses, but we can change the lives of individuals one at a time. And who knows what that individual may take off and do to help the society in which we live and bringing them back to conservative values.
Dan Borum, it's very, very well said. I like I certainly like the comparison of Pharisees in terms of they were the politicians of their day.
That is correct. They had a lot of influence, even living under the Roman Empire. They had a lot of political influence, and they were power hungry. They knew. Many of them knew. We know this because of Nicodemus, who came to Jesus by night. Many of them knew that Jesus probably and more than likely was the Messiah that they had been waiting for, but they were so drunk with their own power, they were willing to crucify him rather than to humble themselves to him. Amazing. That's what power does to people who cannot handle it.
Dan Borum, I really appreciate it with the Patriots of Act 746. It's always a thrill to have you on, sir.
Paul, thank you for having me on. It's always a pleasure.
All righty. You have a great day. Folks, it's Patriots of Act 746. Search for them on Facebook. The Patriots of Act 746 ask to be a member of their group as they work to educate people one individual at a time about your human right to self-defense inside the state of Arkansas. We've got to take a break. Back in just a moment.
If you believe the Second Amendment protects your right to defend your home with a firearm, where do you turn if the government confiscates your gun? To the courthouse. The Founding Fathers created your Seventh Amendment right to a civil jury to protect your freedoms. The courthouse is where you fight the overreaching hand of government. And the Brad Hendricks Law Firm is where the fight starts. Call the Brad Hendricks Law Firm at 501-221-0444. The Brad Hendricks Law Firm in Little Rock, standing ready using the Seventh Amendment to protect your Second Amendment rights.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Out there who are not for this, I have seen on social media, they are really vocal about how this will empower bureaucrats and agency heads. And I've seen a lot of these people are politicians who are saying, listen, if we want to fight the agency heads, they, wield all of this power. We've got to have longer terms so we can deal with them. Whether this passes or whether it fails by the vote of the people, I would just encourage all politicians who right now are critical of agency heads outside the session to have that same criticism inside the session and have that same mistrust inside the session. Because I've heard from some who I would think maybe, I don't know, I think that would just be healthy to, okay, win, lose, or draw. Like, we've got to really get these bureaucracies under control.
Paul, I heard a really powerful person in the state who I asked why they didn't run for political office.
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
A couple of things here as I build off of this segment we just had. When we were talking to Dan Borm and we were playing the Salt Bowl video, seeing everybody scrambling for their lives, that's what they were doing. Now, I know there wasn't an actual gun or there wasn't an actual gun shot, according to reports, but that doesn't mean that, somebody wrote on here, this is the ultimate goal of progressives. Look at them run. They're running because they've sensationalized something that is, a problem, if you will, that they are trying to fix by what? Disarming people. That's their goal. I thought that was an interesting comment. I think that, as you play it on the loop, I would never, as somebody who's now is specifically a parent, a pretty new parent for the first time, I guess for 13 months, almost 14. Is it 13? What is this, August? Yeah, almost 13. I see one father, just kind of briskly walking to the exit, holding his little girl's hand, and I think to myself, I don't want to be in that situation. Nobody does, but wouldn't you rather have a gun? Absolutely, I would rather have a gun in that situation. Not that I would necessarily, if you're with your family, go seek out the danger, but certainly, you'd have something to meet it with if it came at, if you had to confront it or whatever. Anyway, it's really, when I see that video, I cringe. I think this is how they see us. They would rather this happen than give. They would rather you be dependent on them and risk something like that happening at the Salt Bowl with everybody running for their lives than give you the right to self-defense, because it's in a public place where you're the most vulnerable, but it's a public place. I'm not pretending that the answer is easy by societal standards today, but from a basic human right, it is a very simple answer. And yet, in the wake of what happened at the Salt Bowl, you have articles like this one, THV, breaking down the Salt Bowl scare, discussing security and stun guns. Listen to what they say. They say, in the wake of Saturday's Salt Bowl false alarm, two major concerns keep surfacing. If a stun gun sounds like gunfire, and if there was enough security at the event. Really? Those are the two questions after you see that video? No, the question is there a way we should, or not is there a way, should we just allow people to be able to protect themselves? I mean, I don't see how, maybe I'm just wired differently. I don't see how that's not at least a part of the conversation, but it's the mainstream media, and we can't, more guns can never be the solution. It's always got to be less guns. I'll remind you, we talked about this story yesterday, but over at Conduit News, the Facebook page, I saw they posted a story I posted yesterday. It was the Breitbart article of the guy who was stabbed to death over in London. He died right beneath a knife control poster that was advocating, stop the knifing or disarm yourselves or don't carry knives. Yeah, knife control. That really works. These people don't get it. How many lives is it going to take? We need to start asking that question. How many lives is it going to take? How much blood has to be spilt before people get it, that it's the gun-free zone, it's not the gun? How long is it going to take? There are some people who are genuinely, absolutely, 100% positively terrified of the sight of a gun. That's true. It really is. I mean, I've seen it firsthand. I have seen it firsthand where somebody, saw a gun. It was perfectly fine, but they saw it and they left the room. They had to get out of there, freaked out. Oh my gosh, because they don't see the gun as a tool. They see it as something that is just terrifying. That's it's like a claymore mine. It could go off at any second. They don't understand the hardware. They don't understand the technology. They don't understand any of it. And the mainstream media is more than happy to nurture that fear into mass hysteria. And in the meantime, because they won't look at the situation like a rational person who wants to save the most lives possible, people are going to continue to die in gun-free zones. People are going to continue to think about it. I mean, I've done this. I know you've done it probably too. I'm going into this event, and I'm unarmed, and it's a public event, and you think to yourself, because I don't know about you, but maybe, I'm sure there's women out there, but I think, there's a lot of men out there that probably think about protecting their family a lot, doing threat assessments of, am I vulnerable here, that sort of thing. I mean, I run those scenarios all the time, and there are some times where, well, you know what, I'm not going to be able to have a gun going in here because I'll be in violation of the law if I do, but you go in anyway, don't you? You risk it, and I know it. I'm well aware of it. Well, I'm running the risk here because I'm not armed. I'm not carrying, so, Anyway, go watch that video of the Salt Bowl and people scurrying for their lives. It is really gut-wrenching, especially when you realize that there's a lot of politicians that want to keep you that way.
The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
Senate term.
One Senate term, I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you. I'm going to have to raise $150,000 and run for one term. If I'm donating to someone, why would I donate to someone who's limited to one term? Why wouldn't I find a candidate who I can keep in there for 2 terms, good or bad?
Yeah.
I think it's going to put a real burden on
These
finding
are interesting
people to make
arguments.
that move.
Interesting arguments. We're talking with State Representative Dan Sullivan. Some of these arguments I haven't heard yet from the people who are not supportive of this issue 3, to take the term limits from 16 down to 10 years. It certainly is very interesting. I will say this, though, okay, because I tend to support the 10-year, the term limit thing. A lot of the people out there who are not for this, I have seen on social media, they are really, really vocal about how this will empower bureaucrats and agency heads. And I've seen a lot of these people are politicians who are saying, listen, if we want to fight the agency heads, they, wield all of this power. We've got to have longer terms so we can deal with them. Whether this passes or whether it fails by the vote of the people, I would just encourage all politicians who right now are critical of agency heads outside the session to have that same criticism inside the session and have that same mistrust inside the session. Because I've heard from some who I would think maybe, I don't know, I think that would just be healthy to, okay, win, lose, or draw. Like, we've got to really get these bureaucracies under control.
Paul, I heard a really powerful person in the state who I asked why they didn't run for political office tell me, I would rather be a kingmaker than a king. And it's more important to powerful people to be the person behind the power than it is to be the person in so-called power. You talk a lot about legal graft. And if our battle is against legal graft, then we need to be really concerned about the kingmakers, not as well as the people who are the kings in the powerful positions. And I think if you want to be in legislative position, you want to be in the legislature, the easiest way, and people told me this when I got there, they said the easiest way to get into power and to stay in power is go along to get along. That's the easiest way to do it. And those people are very easy to recruit, and they're very easy to find. They just want to be in power. It's hard to find people who will stand up against the power. That's very difficult to do. It's far and few between. And when we find them, we need to support them. And I know Conduit and you support that also. But I just think those folks are hard to find. And I think the powerful are going to find it easy to recruit new legislators and to keep them in office.
We're talking with State Representative Dan Sullivan. I really appreciate your thoughts on this. Although I may disagree, you can definitely make reasoned arguments on both sides of this issue. Can we talk just a little bit about issue 1? Can we shift gears here?
Sure.
We just have a little bit of time left. So, we're talking about issue 3 just now, the term limits. Issue 1 is the, quote, tort reform. It's kind of a divisive issue. You got some people that are saying...
Kind of.
So what are your thoughts on issue 1?
Well, I've come out strongly supporting issue 1.
Supporting issue 1?
I'm sorry. Opposing
I'm
issue 1.
I was going to say,
golly.
Well, it's confusing.
Well, it shouldn't be for me. Again, and if I'm confused, I own that. But I've come out opposed to issue 1. That was, again, one of the reasons I had an opponent. I had some of the big groups out there, the hospitals, nursing homes, and those kingmakers. The people who are the kingmakers are the ones who are supporting issue 1. Those of us who are on the other side of that, I think, are kind of the resistance movement. Mm-hmm. And I hope we can gain some strength in there. Again, I think similarly to issue 3, this is just a bad bill. Could we make some tort reform? Yes. Again, this tort reform combines, 3 or 4 different issues, and some of those I vehemently disagree with. Some of them I just think need some reworking. But you can't put all those issues together and have something that's good for the people. So again, just to shorten that up, I think the people that are supporting this are kind of the powerful and the kingmakers behind the others.
Yeah.
And I think
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Hello, hello, hello. Hour number 2. Thank you so much for being with us today. We came off a great first hour. To get the podcast, if you want, after you finish listening to this hour live, you go back and get the podcast if you missed it. We had a quiz, a politician quiz. Who said what? Joe made 100% on it. Oh, I just ruined it. Spoiler alert if you haven't listened to the first hour. Also, we talked to Mr. Dan Borum, had an excellent conversation about what happened at the Salt Bowl and people scrambling for their lives, according to the video. Had a good conversation about a human right to self-defense, the relationship between citizen and government, and that sort of thing. So be sure to get that. Folks, at the bottom of this hour, we have Mr. Joey McCutcheon, who will be with us talking about Issue 1. Always great to talk to him. But, folks, we do these things called Small Business Spotlights. We want to highlight Arkansas business owners. We want to show you that they're the backbone of this state and of this economy. And one of those people, one of those businesses is Omega Guns. Based out of Russellville, and Mr. Wade Bailey, owner of Omega Guns, is back with us. Wade, welcome.
Good morning, Paul. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. Real quick, I know we've had you on before, and I actually love to get your opinions on, issues of the day and everything else, but I want to make sure everybody understands what it is exactly that you do, manufacturing these roller lock weapons, these replicas. And just tell us a little bit about that and how you got started in it.
Well, I've been around guns most of my life, and always had a love for German rifles and the HK platform, and started making parts and accessories back in about 2000, and that's when I formed my corporation. And I was living in Arizona at that time. And back in 2006, we moved out here to Russellville, Arkansas, and transferred our corporation. About 4 years ago, I had the opportunity to get into building complete firearm weapons from the ground up. And so we make roller lock. They're called roller lock guns. They're clones of the HK MP5s and the variant. Most notable firearm that's been used worldwide for law enforcement, military. We build them. We have law enforcement here in Arkansas that uses as duty weapons, as well as around the country. We've done a couple small builds for military contracts, and we have a lot of great customers across the country that are good law-abiding citizens.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Now, do you guys give a discount for law enforcement and things like that?
Law enforcement and military, active and retired, do get a discount.
That's fantastic.
The discount varies a little bit depending on what gun it is and how much profit we have into it. But yes, we do give active law enforcement and retired law enforcement military discounts.
Folks, the website, if you want to go and check it out, get the telephone number to contact Wade and to ask about what he can do for you, is omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. That's the symbol, not the actual word spelled out. So, Wade, tell us a little bit about how do you think things are going right now economically? I mean, we had the amazing GDP report. President Donald Trump's leadership is, I think to most people, being seen as the catalyst here. What are your thoughts as a business owner here in Arkansas?
Well, from what I've seen so far, and feel like I'm experiencing, I'm liking what I'm seeing. People have money and seem to be spending it, and so we've had, I think, some pretty good numbers here so far this year, especially since President Trump said that he was going to do what he did on with taxes. So I'm kind of anxious to see how my taxes go this year compared to previous years when I get to file corporate taxes. But I think I've had, normally during the summer, that's our slow time, and we've been pretty steady. I think we've had a busier summer than we've had in a lot of summers past. So I'm looking forward to, right now it's season starts up here after kids get in school. So between now and 1st of October is when typical business picks up and really is active. So I'm looking forward to seeing if it continues on and grows here, and we have a real good busy season this year.
How many employees do you have again, Wade?
Right now, 4.
4 employees. That's fantastic. I'm just curious. What are your thoughts on? I know there's, you being in the firearm business, there have been, according to the left, their statistics are way skewed, but all of these unfortunate tragedies where you have somebody going into a gun-free zone and murdering a bunch of people with a firearm. The left believes that the answer is to restrict people like you. That's really, and really people like me who just want to own a gun for, self-defense. What are your thoughts on their solutions to curb gun violence?
Well, I've often said and think that, if you set a gun down on a table in a room full of people, that gun's not going to make anybody a criminal. So only a criminal is going to do something. Doesn't matter how many laws you make or how many laws you pass, only a criminal is out there to break the law. When they passed laws, just like the Clinton ban, that most people know is the assault weapons ban that lasted for 10 years, that Clinton imposed back in whenever that was. You couldn't have a gun over with a 10-round magazine. Couldn't have folding stocks. You had to have thumb-hold stocks. You had to have all these dorky regulations that some states still kept after the assault weapons ban was lapsed. And the law-abiding citizen system goes, I'm not a lawbreaker, so I'm going to abide by the law. If they say I can't have a folding stock, I'm not going to have a folding stock. If I can't have a legal gun without more than a 10-round magazine, I'm going to do that. The criminal, there were still people out there shooting people with 30-round magazines and illegally converting machine guns, and because that's their job. Their job is to break the law. So instead of imposing laws to limit the law-abiding citizen, the courts, I think, are one of the biggest problems because they don't impose the laws that we already have on the books. And they were slapping these criminals on the hand and processing them and putting them right back on the streets, and prisons are making them better criminals. So we need to enforce the laws that we already have and strengthen those laws so that the law-abiding citizen has the right to defend themselves, and that the criminals are put away. If you kill somebody and it's outright a first-degree murder and it's proved, I think you should be put to death. We need to. It costs more to house a prisoner than it does to put your kids in college. Something's wrong with that system, and our courts have allowed this to happen.
We're talking with Wade Bailey. He's the owner of Omega Guns. Like you said, like you heard him say, he's been doing this for a while, since 2006. And so he certainly is a successful business owner. He knows what he's doing. Wade, recently, and I don't mean to harp on the gun control thing, but here in Arkansas, there's some talk of the Republican legislature passing red flag laws that would basically strip somebody of their right to own or to keep and bear arms, based on an allegation. What are your thoughts on red flag laws?
Again, it just goes back only person that's going to harm or interfere with is the law-abiding citizen. We have plenty of laws. You know, there's only so much you can do to predict or prevent someone that's going to do something bad from doing it. You know, you're starting to get into the what was that movie with Tom Cruise that was he was the
Minority Report. Yeah, the Minority Report.
Minority Report. I mean, that's what you're getting into thought crimes. It's like, oh, we see that you're going to do this, so you've got to be stopped.
Yeah.
You know, there's a point where you've got to have an action before you have a reaction. And I mean, that may sound ridiculous, but you haven't broken the law unless you commit a crime. And right now, there is no deterrent for youth and people to want to go out and commit crimes. You know, it's drive-by shootings to initiate into a gang. It's okay. It's just a thing to do because you want in the because it's easy money. There's no deterrent for doing that. You know, back in the old days when they hung criminals, yeah, the families and the kids. It was, you know, they mock those pictures now where you have the families and the children standing by the guy hanging from the tree. But I'll tell you what, I guarantee that made an impression on that little kid. And most little kids would sit there and go, I don't want to be that guy from the tree.
Let me ask you this. As a gun manufacturer, do you already have like a ton of regulations that you have to comply with?
Oh, yeah, I try to keep a good rapport with some of my local ATF, and there's one in particular that I probably call a couple times a month and talk to her, confirming regulations, because there's so many regulations. She a lot of times has to even go to higher ups or Washington D.C. to confirm what I'm asking, because she doesn't even know, and she is an ATF agent. So there's lots of stuff that we have to deal with and make sure our I's are dotted and T's are crossed to stay within the laws and regulations. But yeah, there's I think the ATF regulation book is close to 1,000 pages.
Wow. Okay, so I just wanted to make that point that in a lot of ways you guys are already, you know, regulated to death, and then of course they're trying to pass regulations more. I'm sure they really would just love to put what you do, you know, they'd love to put you out of business entirely. On a different note, Wade, I'm just curious, are you excited at all? I mean, I'm starting to become a little optimistic about tax cuts here in Arkansas. I'm not quite there yet. I'm still maybe glass half empty, but so far the proposal, even though I may disagree with some of the, tax shifting or whatever, so far the tax task force is recommending a proposal that would be a, net reduction in revenue to the government. Now, whether they come back and try to make that up with other bills, that remains to be seen. But as a small business owner, I mean, I'm assuming, would love to pay less taxes, state taxes here in Arkansas.
Absolutely. I always kind of get a kick out of, I don't travel a lot, but I have been to quite a few different places, and I'm always amazed at how much taxes we pay here in Russellville, where I think we're 9%. And I go back to Colorado where I grew up, and I think the tax rate's like 7% in Denver.
Wow.
I mean, we pay a lot of taxes here in Arkansas, and I don't think a lot of people really realize it. And I'm sitting there going, if they can make it up there with that, why? And of course they've got the hemp sales up there, which they're making buku money on, but their tax rates on everything that you buy is less than in the big cities than we are here in the small towns, and I don't know where the overhead is.
Yeah. Well, Arkansas is a real poor state, I mean, that's the bottom line is. Now whether or not,
yep.
And here's the question, are we poor because it takes almost $8,000 per person to fund our government? Is that why the people are poor? I think the answer is yes. When Oklahoma and Texas, they're running their government for $5,000 a person. That's a big deal. Go ahead.
Definitely doesn't help anything.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a direct implication. I mean, I think because we've put so much emphasis in a big government that's why we have 1 million people out of 3 million people who are on Medicaid in this state. Like I think there's a direct correlation there, And so that's why I think if you leave more money back into the pockets of the people and you were to, let's say, reduce the corporate tax here in Arkansas or eliminate it altogether and treat all businesses equally, I mean, I think you're going to attract a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of jobs based on, people wanting to provide a product or a service for a profit and create jobs because of it. And that'll be more money in the pockets. More people can buy your guns, Wade.
Absolutely. I mean, that's when you put money in people's hands, they spend it. That grows businesses, that grows profits, that creates real money for a government if they would run it correctly. And we have gas tax. I don't know. We pay 50-some cents a gallon on gas tax. So I was of the understanding that's supposed to go directly to keeping our roads. That's the purpose of the gas tax. But it seems like we don't have enough gas tax. We've got to be getting money from the federal government or someplace to keep our roads going and sell bonds and sell all these things. And well, what are they doing? There's a lot of gas that's sold, and that's a lot of money that's generated right there.
Yeah.
So put money back into people's hands, and the people spend it, and that grows, things prosper in the free enterprise system.
That's exactly right. Hey, Wade Bailey with Omega Guns. Folks, check him out. It's omega-guns.com, and you'll have all the contact information there at omega-guns.com. It's always great to talk to an Arkansas business owner, Wade, and I appreciate you very much.
I appreciate you.
All righty. Yeah. Folks, we're going to take a break. We're going to be right back. When we come back, I want to tell you a little bit about how the FBI has refused to confirm or deny a big story about Hillary Clinton's email server. Also, Joey McCutcheon coming up at the bottom of the hour talking about Issue 1. Back in just a moment. We have State Representative Dan Sullivan is here. Dan, welcome back to the program,
Good
sir.
morning, Paul. Glad to be back. I think this is the first time I've been back since I won my primary election.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I mean, and I think that was a certainly positive thing. And I mean, what is your feeling on how that primary went that you were victorious in?
I think they made the right decision. And I really appreciate the support from your listeners, from people like the Patriots, from my motorcycle friends and everybody that got to the polls and voted.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that and look forward to serving another term.
Speaking of terms, let's talk about terms. Let's talk about, what do you think? What do you think about Issue 3, which would cap term limits at 10 years?
Well, I'm still haven't made my mind up because I do agree that there should be some sort of cap on the number of years that a representative or senator can run. I think that's a good idea. I think the concept is good.
It's a
But right now, I oppose
parody.
Hey, man.
Against.
You got any of that marble rock?
Yeah, I've got the hookup.
Thanks. I need a fix real bad. I'm itching to grow some government.
How much you need?
I'm gonna need a taxpayer's dime bag.
No problem, sir. 1 taxpayer dime of marble rock. Enjoy.
Thanks, man. They don't call it Little Rock for nothing. Am I right?
Did you know your state representative or state senator may be addicted to growing government? The drug is called marble rock, and too much of it will cause marble fever. Watch for the warning signs. Does your legislator suddenly display a lack of humility when faced with basic questions? Does he or she suddenly develop hubris and pride that was not present during the campaign for office? These are signs they might be smoking the terrible drug, marble rock. The solution? Detox. Vote for detox. Vote to send them home for their own good. Warning! Some politicians once voted out of office will not go home and stay in Little Rock to get their fix by lobbying, also known as the Burris Syndrome.
PHP parody.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
All right, so the FBI, according to we brought you this story, I think on Monday or Tuesday. I think it was Monday. But the FBI, apparently, I mean, there was an Intelligence Community Inspector General report that said that there was an anomaly on Hillary Clinton's server as early as 2015. Louis Gohmert questioned Peter Strzok about this weeks ago. He, of course, says, I don't remember. We now know, according to the Daily Caller reports, the Daily Caller says it was, in fact, China that was hacking in or had this anomaly on Hillary Clinton's server, her bathroom server, and that they were basically getting this information in real time, meaning when Hillary Clinton got an email, China was able to read the email. They were able to see when Hillary Clinton sent an email. China was able to see what she was sending, okay? This is a huge, huge bombshell story. The media doesn't want anything to do with it. Just like they didn't want to cover this story in the first place back in 2016. The Daily Caller's Richard Pollack reports that the FBI refuses to disclose whether or not it met with senior members of the Intelligence Community Inspector General on the subject of foreign intrusion of former Secretary Hillary Clinton's private server. An FBI spokeswoman refused to confirm if Intelligence Community Inspector officials, including Frank Rucker, its chief investigator, briefed top bureau officials about evidence of penetration of Clinton's private server by a Chinese government intelligence operation. Quote, we have no comment. Earlier Wednesday, an FBI spokesperson released what appeared to be a categorical statement about the Clinton server. Quote, the FBI has not found any evidence the servers were compromised, the FBI stated. That statement does not address a central aspect of the Daily Caller News Foundation's reporting, which was that the Intelligence Community Inspector General briefed top bureau officials on 3 separate occasions to warn the FBI of an anomaly they found 30,000 inbound and outgoing emails. The report is based on an intelligence official with direct knowledge of the matter. The anomaly showed a code embedded in Clinton's server was producing in real time a courtesy copy to a third party. The third party was a Chinese state-owned company based in Northern Virginia. I wonder if they got any subsidies. Just outside of Washington, D.C., and was part of an ongoing Chinese government intelligence operation, according to 2 separate sources with direct knowledge of the matter. According to one source, the last Intelligence Community Inspector General briefing was held in June 2016, about a month before former FBI Director James Comey stated that he did not recommend any indictment of Clinton for mishandling classified materials. Comey, in a widely reported July 5, 2016 press conference, stated he did not find direct evidence that Clinton's email domain was successfully hacked. He added, we assess that we would be unlikely to see such direct evidence and that we do assess that hostile actors gained access to the private commercial email accounts of people with whom Secretary Clinton was in regular contact from her personal account. Given that combination of factors, we assess it is possible that hostile actors gained access to Secretary Clinton's personal email account. Before the FBI statement, President Donald Trump tweeted on the subject, saying, report just out. China hacked Hillary's private email server. Are they sure it wasn't Russia? Just kidding. What are the odds that the FBI and DOJ are right on top of this? Actually, a very big story, much classified information. He then went on, a second tweet yesterday. Hillary Clinton's emails, many of which are classified information, got hacked by China. Next move better be by the FBI and DOJ, or after all of their other missteps, Comey, McCabe, Strzok, Page, or FISA, dirty dossier, their credibility will be gone forever. You know, I've had a lot of pleading with our Arkansas U.S. attorneys to restore the confidence of our government here in Arkansas locally by doing what needs to be done. These politicians have been outed as at least doing stuff unethical, but it's very possible it was illegal, and I've urged them to move to restore the faith that we have lost in our government. The same thing needs to be said about what's happened at the FBI, what's happened at the Justice Department under the Obama administration. Folks, this is so much worse than I think we know, and the media cannot cover it accurately, because if they do, it will mean sympathy for President Donald Trump. It will mean that there were illegal acts done against the Trump campaign, against the Trump, the transition team as well after he became the president-elect. this FISA situation is going to be pretty. I think when we really figure out what was used to justify the FISA, it's going to be a big deal as well. Anyway, we're going to keep following this, but just wanted to follow up on the story we reported to you earlier in the week. It was China. Oh, by the way, is Arkansas going to continue giving our taxpayer dollars to Chinese companies so that more Chinese companies can come here, steal our rice technology and whatever else? We have State Representative Dan Sullivan is here. Dan, welcome back to the program.
Good
sir.
morning, Paul. Glad to be back. I think this is the first time I've been back since I won my primary election.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, and I think that was a certainly positive thing. And I mean, what is your feeling on how that primary went that you were victorious in?
I think they made the right decision. And I really appreciate the support from your listeners, from people like the Patriots, from my motorcycle friends, and everybody that got to the polls and voted.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that, and look forward to serving another term.
Speaking of terms, let's talk about terms. Let's talk about, what do you think? What do you think about Issue 3, which would cap term limits at 10 years?
Well, I'm still haven't made my mind up, because I do agree that there should be some sort of cap on the number of years that a representative or senator can run. I think that's a good idea. I think the concept is good. But right now, I'm against, and I think the 10-year cap in there is a bad idea. What essentially what that would do, if you have and there are many House members who serve in the House and then move to the Senate. And I think one of the best reasons to have those people doing that is institutional knowledge is critical. You wouldn't find a business that would promote somebody to leadership in 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 years. It takes that long to learn how things work. Nor would you kick your leadership out of business every 10 years and turn that over. So in principle, I know this is different because it's legislature and you do want protections there. So I think the caps are good. But again, the 10 years is too short. You take a House member that serves for 6 years, does a good job, the people like them. If they decide to run in the Senate,
the summer clearance event is going on now at Bear Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram and Bear Ram Truck Center. This is Keith.
And if you ran in an election, that would be used against you. Why would you want to elect someone just for one 4-year term? And that's a valid point. So I think, the old term limits, I think, was pretty good. 3 years in the House and 2 terms, or 3 terms in the House and 2 terms in the Senate, which went to 14 years.
So you're talking about pre-John Woods?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and I think that was a pretty good limit and addressed many of the points that are being made. But again, I think the 10 years is just a poor selection. You have to also consider that every 10 years we redraw our districts and set new boundaries out there.
The census, yeah.
We do the census, right?
Yeah.
And we
bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. We want to welcome back to the program as well Fort Smith attorney, Mr. Joey McCutcheon is with us. Joey, thanks for coming on, sir.
Hey, I'm glad to be on, Paul. I appreciate you having me this morning. It's always good to be with my conservative friends.
Yes, absolutely. The feeling is mutual. Joey, I understand, because I saw your photo on the Conduit News article, you were at this event last Friday, the 24th, the Northwest Arkansas Political Animals Club, where Bob Ballinger was debating former Supreme Court Justice Paul Danielson, were you not?
I was there.
Just generally, let's before we get to the end of the debate, let's talk about what was discussed. I mean, what were some of the points discussed for Issue 1, against Issue 1? I mean, I know you're against Issue 1 just like I am, the bad tort reform. Go ahead.
Yeah, some of some of the statements by Representative Ballinger to me were just shocking. Misrepresentations, half-truths. He talks about caps, and does he not? And he talks about the caps being a floor and not a ceiling. Well, does he not understand the principle that when juries are making decisions, when grandmom's killed in a nursing home, or a truck crosses the center line and renders someone a quadriplegic, that it's up to juries to make that decision. That's what our Constitution envisions. And what Representative Ballinger and insurance companies want to do is limit what Arkansas juries can do. And, I mean, it's not hard. Our Arkansas Constitution, Article 2, Section 7, says that the right to trial by jury shall remain inviolate. And juries should be making decisions about what's fair for folks. We shouldn't set an arbitrary price tag on the value of human life by, I call this the Insurance Protection Act. I mean, and that's what it is. And Representative Ballinger, numerous falsehoods, and we can go through them one by one if you'd like, Paul.
Yes, go ahead. It's all yours.
Well, take for example, he throws out a statistic that California passed tort reform in 1976, which placed a $250,000 arbitrary price tag on medical malpractice premiums. Representative Ballinger said, just kind of threw this figure out, that there was a 40% rate reduction in malpractice insurance after California tort reform. Well, the truth is that there was a 450% increase in malpractice premiums for good doctors over a 13-year period. It wasn't until 1988, Paul, when insurance reform, Proposition 103, was passed in California, that from that time since, there's been a 2% reduction in medical malpractice premiums. So what got the job done in California was not putting a price tag on the value of human life, but instead telling insurance companies to justify why they're increasing doctors' premiums. So California's Proposition 103 insurance reform got the job done. And it was just a misrepresentation by Mr. Ballinger when he said there was a 40% rate reduction, when in fact there was a 450% increase.
Wow. That to say that's skewed doesn't even begin to describe it. One of the things that I thought was very interesting was the question about why doesn't this issue even address frivolous lawsuits. I understand Representative Ballinger said he thought that it does address frivolous lawsuits, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm the one who asked that question because Issue 1 does not address frivolous lawsuits. That's the bottom line. And people believe, and there are frivolous lawsuits out there. There's no question about that, Paul. But why doesn't if the special interest in insurance companies wanted to do something about frivolous lawsuits, well, they failed miserably because nothing's in issue 1 about frivolous lawsuits. All this bill does is take away the meritorious lawsuits. It puts a price tag on brain damage, quadriplegia, and life of $500,000, the maximum. But issue 1 does not address frivolous lawsuits because the nursing home industry wasn't concerned when they drafted this bill. Michael Morton and David Norsworthy, the two, you know who they are, of course.
Yeah.
David Norsworthy sent Jake Files, then Senator Jake Files, an $80,000 wire transfer right after tort reform was introduced in 2000 or filed in 2014, late 2014. They're not concerned about frivolous lawsuits. What they want is a price tag and certainty when they kill grandmom negligently in the nursing home. So that's the reason that there's no.
Well, then they can they want a knowable cost so they can factor it into the cost of doing business.
And in fact, we have a way to deal with frivolous lawsuits, and it's not taking away the rights of the people. One thing I did agree with Representative Ballinger on is we already have something in place. It's called Rule 11. Punish the lawyers. If Joey McCutcheon files a frivolous lawsuit, then punish the lawyer and don't take away the rights of the citizens. That's already in place, Paul. That's a red herring when they continue to say this is about frivolous lawsuits. We've gone to them numerous times to try to deal with frivolous lawsuits. And the other side, they're not interested in dealing with frivolous lawsuits.
Let me ask you this, because I know the idea of a judge lowering a judgment against a nursing home, that has actually been in the news. Obviously, that's why Judge Mike Maggio is in jail. He pled guilty to taking a bribe in exchange to lower the judgment. But a lot of people need to realize something, and I'd love for you to speak to this as an attorney. Judges do have the ability to lower judgments. And there's been some dispute on this. I've been told on social media they have that ability. And so in the case of, and I'd like for you to speak to that as an attorney, maybe there is a case where the judgment is ridiculous or something like that, and judges have the ability to step in and do something about that, correct?
They do. We have our founders were very, very smart, and they understood that occasionally there could be a wayward jury, so they put a check and balance in our system. We don't need the legislature encroaching in this power grab of so-called caps because we've already got it in place. If there's a jury verdict that is too much, then the judge can step in and lower that verdict. That's what Judge Maggio did down in Conway. The only problem was he received a bribe from nursing home owner, the nursing home owner Michael Morton, who was actually involved in that particular case. But Judge Maggio lowered that verdict from $5 million to $1 million. He has that authority, and that's the checks and balances, and that's what the nursing homes and the special interests out there don't want citizens to understand, that that's already built into our justice system, and our founders fully appreciated that.
We have a question for you from Facebook. Jackie on Facebook says, Joey, please address how the legislature can change the cap with a supermajority.
Well, that's a they do put that language in there. In the legislature, there is language in there. First of all, just to explain to the listeners, what the legislature has done and what they want you to vote on is to place a $500,000 arbitrary price tag on life if you're killed, quadriplegia. But they do say that the legislature can increase the cap. But do we really believe that the legislature who produced this Insurance Protection Act, do we really believe that the insurance companies and big business special interests are going to allow them to increase this cap? Paul, California is a classic example. Californians have lived with a $250,000 cap since 1976. The power brokers are never going to allow the cap to be increased. But again, does our legislature not understand that this is a job for juries to listen to the evidence and to make decisions about how much a life is worth? I had a client, Vicki Jansen, and Vicki was rendered a quadriplegic in a rollover case where Firestone produced a defective tire. She lived 13 years as a vent-dependent quadriplegic. She never was able to care for her Down syndrome son. She was never able to breathe on her own. What Issue 1 would do would tell juries that the most you could ever give for 13 years, which she lived, finally died because of it, 13 years event-dependent quadriplegic, $500,000. And Vicky, we had a promise that if she ever died, that I would carry on in her stead and fight this fight so that nobody would have to go through what her family had to go through.
Yeah, it's a terrible issue. We need to vote it down this November. In my opinion, I mean, I'm going to vote against it. Chuck on Facebook says, and they can also lower it, meaning they could also lower the cap if they wanted to. That's something that we haven't thought about. Generally speaking, why does the legislature think they need to be involved in something that is really a part of the workings of a separate and equal branch of government, the judicial branch, Joey?
Because it's a power grab. It's a power grab by the legislature. It's a legislative takeover. It's a power grab. But look, the problem is we've got good legislators, no question, but we've had our share of legislators that everyone will know the corruption is pretty deep. It's a political body. It's influenced by special interests. I mean, it's so apparent, Paul. Why did issue 1, which was SJR 8 at the time, our legislature, the Senate and the House, only gave the people 30 minutes to debate this issue. 30 minutes, something that is going to change our Constitution more than any other measure, I think, in state history. They gave the people in the before this was passed out 30 minutes total. Rose Mims, from Executive Director of Arkansas Right to Life, who is against issue 1. Miss Mims did not get to testify because they didn't allow time. This was ramrodded through the House and the Senate, and it just speaks to the process. So what are they going to do with rulemaking if the legislature, which is influenced? It's a highly political body, and that's the problem. Special interests who pay huge sums, like an $80,000 wire transfer from then Senator Jake Files from a nursing home owner, David Norsworthy. I mean, it's pretty clear. It's pretty clear that is not the body that should be making our court rules.
At the end of the go ahead.
One thing, Paul, that was addressed in the debate was the bait and switch, and this is classic bait and switch. Us conservatives will remember issue 3 a few years back, where we thought we were getting ethics reform. Wow, did we get ethics reform for the legislature? But what we got was increase in term limits and increase in legislator pay. Issue 1's another classic bait and switch. They want to say this outfit that calls themselves Jobs and Justice. I mean, what a misnomer. They want to say that limiting the rights of the people is going to create jobs in our state. Well, one of the issue 1 supporters, as we know, is Randy Zook with the State Chamber of Commerce. Yep. Randy Zook has come out in another context and said, we have plenty of jobs in Arkansas. We just don't have qualified folks to fill them. Arkansas has the lowest unemployment rate in state history. This is classic bait and switch. Say it's going to create jobs, castigate trial lawyers. That's what's getting ready to happen next, Paul. As we both know, there's going to be millions upon $1 million of commercials out here saying that this is going to produce jobs. It's going to cure cancer. It's going to, take care of greedy trial lawyers. And at the same time, we're going to vote away our rights. Yeah. Or are we? I think Arkansans are smarter than special interests give us credit for.
I want to get your reaction to this. Towards the end of the meeting you were at, the debate you were at with the Political Animals Club back on Friday, August 24th, towards the end of the meeting, State Representative Bob Ballinger, he said this to the audience. Listen to this, Joey. I want to get your reaction.
Let me say this. I am really disappointed for a profession that gets beat up as much as we do, where they, only good lawyer is a dead lawyer, right? And, all that stuff, right? For somebody who gets beat up as much as we do, for people to just beat up the legislature. My friends in the legislature legislature are servants. Not one of them up there right now is benefiting from being in this business. They have set themselves aside. My point exactly. Hey, those are people who are down there working hard, representing you.
All right, Joey, you were in the room there. Was that you laughing, I heard?
No, I think the whole room was laughing. But here's what I think about that. Bob Ballinger was whining to this audience and lecturing to this audience about that no legislator, they're servants and they're down there. No one, he said, was up there benefiting from the legislature. Well, I mean, come on. I mean, we've seen scandal after scandal, and there are very, very good legislators. There are honest and noble legislators. But to sit there and say that was lecturing to this audience, and they erupted in laughter. One of the things, because it just wasn't true. I mean, it was so untrue and so insulting. Because of all the corruption that's going on, and at the same time they're trying to take away our rights. You might have seen that Arkansas Democrat story, the fake news that the Arkansas Democrat editors, it's probably Dan Greenberg's dad writing this, that Dan probably helped draft this thing. But it was talking about that it was so disrespectful to Bob Ballinger, all the boos. I challenge the Arkansas Democrat Gazette to publish in their paper or put this video out and show where there was one boo. It was simply laughter. It was just fake news. The bottom line is that Mr. Ballinger is trying to deflect the fact that as a conservative, he is way off base here. This issue puts an arbitrary price tag on the value of human life, and it is classic government overreach. We are going to write in a $500,000 price on life into our Constitution. Can you imagine that, Paul? The overwhelming majority of our state is pro-life, and now certain Republican legislators want us to write a price on the value of human life into a sacred document called the Arkansas Constitution.
Yeah.
That's worth fighting for, Paul.
Yeah,
that is worth fighting for
agree.
To the core.
I agree, Joey, and I appreciate you fighting for it. I appreciate you coming on the program, and we'll do this again soon, okay?
Hey, Paul, can I have one final comment?
Yes, sir.
I'm speaking to a large group of conservatives this morning, and conservatives like Jerry Cox, Rose Mims, Mike Masterson with the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, Martha Deaver with the Advocates for Nursing Homes have all come out. But this is a bipartisan effort. In our meetings across the state to fight against this, we're seeing people on the far left, the far right, coming together to defend our rights. And that is so encouraging because our rights are worth fighting for, whether you're liberal, Democrat, Republican, or Democrat.
Yeah. I appreciate that, Joey. Well, good luck. Where are you speaking? You're speaking this morning. Is it an open event or?
Well, I'm going to be speaking to some Tea Party groups here in the next couple of days.
Okay.
I'm not speaking this morning.
Okay. All righty. Joey
But
McCutcheon.
I'm just talking about our conservative groups and liberal groups generally joining together.
Yeah,
on that.
it certainly is a broad spectrum. I noticed that in the photo with everybody saying, "Hey, look, there's all these different types of messaging on each side. You can kind of tell which side people are coming from, but they all are agreeing, hey, this is bad for the people of this state." Hey, Joe, you be safe.
Yeah. Hey, what was really encouraging is to see AARP going across the state, speaking to our elderly folks. It event after event. There's going to be an event in Jonesboro here in the next week or so. But AARP is speaking loudly and clearly for the elderly folks in Arkansas that this is bad news for elderly folks, particularly those in nursing homes.
Joey, I appreciate it, sir. We'll talk to you soon. Okay?
Thank you, Paul.
All righty, folks.
Have a good one.
Yes, sir. You too. We got to go to break. Back in just a moment.
If you believe the Second Amendment protects your right to defend your home with a firearm, where do you turn if the government confiscates your gun? To the courthouse. The Founding Fathers created your Seventh Amendment right to a civil jury to protect your freedoms. The courthouse is where you fight the overreaching hand of government. And the Brad Hendricks Law Firm is where the fight starts. Call the Brad Hendricks Law Firm at 501-221-0444. The Brad Hendricks Law Firm in Little Rock, standing ready using the Seventh Amendment to protect your Second Amendment rights.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com.
If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
And in fact, what the Senate does, when you enter the Senate during that census year, you draw for a 2-year term or a 4-year term.
Yeah.
So you're going to get people who are in the House 6 years, they run and win in the Senate, and then they draw a 2-year term.
Wow, I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about it. So what State Representative Dan Sullivan just said here is in this scenario, you could have a state House member who serves 6 years in the House and would have 1 4-year term theoretically in the Senate if they ran and won. But on a census year, they might draw a 2-year term and be capped at 8 years instead of
Correct.
10. That is interesting.
And I
know
want to
that.
be sure and verify that, but the people I've talked to, and when I look into it, and the way I read it, that's the way I've read it. Now, if I'm wrong, I'll be willing to stand corrected on that.
Yeah, definitely want to. That's interesting.
I think that's a real detriment. And of course,
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, so tomorrow we got Johnny Cash Friday tomorrow. And tomorrow's Friday. I'm going to thank you in advance for listening tomorrow and starting the beginning of your weekend with us here at the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. So we'll be covering the news and events of the day tomorrow in our Johnny Cash Friday. Really excited about that. Let's see here. Did anybody see tomorrow? I'm going to have to talk just a little bit about what the sports media. I'm telling you right now, the sports media making me sick about what's going on with Tiger Woods and him getting asked this loaded question about Donald Trump and him saying that I have respect for the office of president and leaves it at that. They wanted him to bash the president, everybody, and because he declined to get involved, they're mad. People, these talking heads, and sports used to be about watching. Remember when ESPN was about watching highlights of people playing sports, but now it's about analyzing what the what the personalities of LeBron James or Tiger Woods or what they and it has nothing to do with the game. We ain't talking about the game. We're talking about practice. All right, we got to go. I'll see you tomorrow, 6 o'clock for Johnny Cash Friday, folks. Arkansas, have a great day and be safe.